David's been politely reminding me, in a very polite way, that we didn't do Lemaan Shemo B'Ahava, correct? Right. So the question is, what is Lemaan Shemo? After you finish the first paragraph of Shevach, it ends by saying Lemaan Shemo B'Ahava. What? It's a short point, but what does it mean Lemaan Shemo? The real essence is B'Ahava, right? What's the Ahava? Actually, where's the what?
For the sake of his name with love.
That's good. I like that. For the sake of his name, with love. What love are we talking about? What's the Abba here?
One movie from Parasite.
Is it?
I think so.
It's before my time. So what does that mean? What does it mean? What's the Abba we're referring to here? What's the Abba?
It's seemingly contradictory because it's for him with love. How would you do something for yourself with love?
Well, no. It's Lemaan Shemo, comma, and then B'Ahava is actually going on the whole. The way they learn it out is B'Ahava is going on the whole thing.
That's what I'm saying. How would you do something for yourself with love?
No. It's saying the chesed he does for us is B'Ahava. No, it's being done as a Kiddush Hashem. In other words, that's the Shemo is.
Exactly. How do you do something for yourself?
Yeah. See, Chacham Avad, you're saying that. Chacham Avad is saying that Lemaan Shemo is really an idea in that when you're recognizing that when you, it's not just in obviously not just institution of Tefilah, but in general. But there's an idea that all this is to be Mekadesh Hashem. But what's B'Ahava? What B'Ahava is going on the whole thing? What's the Ava here? What's Ava? You asked a question, so I'll give you a missing fact. This is better. So he says we say in Musav Ata Zocher Maasei Olam Ufoke Kol Yitzurei Kedem. Okay, so we recognize the Shevach that God knows, recalls everything in the world. I think a couple of before the yeshiva I gave a shir on what's the difference between Zechira and Pekida. Because it says Vashem Pakad Asara. That's a different word than or Pokedavon. It's a little bit different than Zechira, but that's a separate shir. So he says at some point when we're discussing this, we reference back to Ki Zecher Kol Maaseh Lefanecha Ba Ve'ata Doresh Maaseh Kulam, right? And you learn, you inquire into the actions of everyone. Now listen to what he says. V'games Noach be'ahava zacharta, okay? And Noach, right, with love you remembered. Be'ahava zacharta. What does that mean be'ahava zacharta?
Well, sure sounds like you need
what?
to
No, the pasuk is Vayiskor Elokim es Noach Veis Kol Chayav es Kol B'Ma Asher Yito B'Teva Vayaver Elokim Ruach Al Aretz Vayishok Mayim. That's the pasuk. But in the Tefilah we say that God remembered Noach be'ahava. So what does it mean be'ahava?
Based on the premise that Ava is
in Zichronos. You have this also in Zichronot.
Based on the premise that Ava is more associated with Rachel.
So don't stop making good steps. You're saying that Ava refers to the notion of that God, that even though Noach may not have deserved it at that time, right? He gave it to him.
The whole Bria
but 1 second. But just to count, if you're on the right track, but I'd counter with. So we know that God promised. when God told Noach go into the teva, right? So did Noach go in with the assumption that I'm going in, I'm going to make it out?
Did God say that?
Well, it's clear. Then it's a crazy. Then the whole thing's crazy. The idea of because why would he go in to begin with? I would have said to God, give me the guarantee. So assuming that HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts in a just manner, the chiddush isn't that. It's not that because Rashi says, what did Noach do? He was mispala. So then it says Vayiskor Elokim because he was davened. At that point, God recalled and then takes him out of the teva. Then, meaning that what could have happened?
Right to me.
No, it's not. Noah could have been out of the teva until when? Until the flood decides to recede. But his going out would be based on whenever the flood receded, right? So in other words, let's assume there was a time of A to Z, or let's say 1 to 100. So rather than be at 100, there's going to be an endpoint. So there had to be an endpoint. So rather than be at 100, God took him out at 70. Okay, that's as ba'ava. So what does that mean? You're on the right track.
So he threw him a bone.
When we say ba'ava, when we say maybe go livnei b'neihem, that God brings redemption, right? Livnei b'neihem. So what does it mean ba'ava? What's the ba'ava there?
So you're saying that.
Of course, anytime God acts, by definition, has to be perfect, vis-a-vis God, but vis-a-vis the way we relate to Him. So, like you said before, there is an idea of things coming "quote unquote" early. Like, for instance, let's take Noah. So Noah really, I posit, okay, that the flood had a set time, so to speak, that the flood was going to last whatever it was, 100 years, let's say, 500 years, whatever it was. And Noah was going to be saved. That wasn't the issue, unless whatever he turned into Russia, but he was going to be saved. But that he merited, but because of the Tefilah, there was some change in Noah. So the change in Noah, God now intervened on his behalf. But for Noach, that was the perfect situation. Yes. The deeper idea is that only God knows all the particulars, right? So only God could ever know what it means. Again, to us, we perceive as intervening early. But the reason why God does it is because God's knowledge is qualitatively different than ours. So only God could know the entire calculation necessary to understand that Bnei Yisrael couldn't exist another moment of Mitzrayim without Moshe being there. There's no way we could ever understand that. We're characterizing the nature of God's chesed. The fact that God is interested in our fate is step one, right? But then we say this whole business here, even all the notion of God's invested in man's welfare and fate. With that said, we recognize that when He chooses to intervene, right, it's always based on a knowledge that we don't have, right? And it's always best for us, so to speak. It's always the perfect time and point of intervention.
Oh, it's perfect for us.
For us.
Okay.
For us. Obviously, whatever God does is perfect. For us, it's always perfect for us.
Considered in that perfect move.
Correct. So when the Geula comes, it's the best possible time for us.
Okay.
Why does it say Mechalkel Chaim Chesed? What does Mechalkel Chaim Chesed mean?
After Mashur.
Right. We'll get back to Gevuros Geshamim. That's a big problem. Big problem. But what's Mechalkel Chaim Chesed?
Sustains life.
Right. So what does that mean? What do you mean Bechesed? Quarantine says that it's Zayin Amud Aleph. It says that according to Amar Rabbi Abou, so the day of rain, okay, meaning when it rains, is a great. Listen to this. Is a greater phenomenon than Tchias HaMesim. Okay. Yeah. Now what? Why? The ilu Tchias HaMesim l'tzadikim v'lo l'rashayim. Right. So Tchias HaMesim is really there for who? Just for tzadikim.
But not for the Rishon, but the rain is there for the
Everybody. So that's a greater thing. Well, what kind of idea is that?
That ruins it.
It says v'ikare Gevuros. Why is it called Gevuros Geshamim? What do you guys think about this? Why is it Gevuros Geshamim? It's just because every drop that falls mimakom gavoa, the eina ruach mifor zoraso, doesn't spread around. Elo yordin l'makom shakadosh baruch hu chayfetz. Right, that's a kind of a weird thing. First of all, because what? Yeah, but what about snow? So snow goes wherever it wants to. Rain is what do you call it? Zari's right. Actually, that's exactly the question you asked. Well, 1 second. So now all of a sudden we're going to apply our causalist theory of God to why rain per se? Why stop there? I mean, why would we mention that? Just say everything He does, He's involved with. What is it about the fact? What do you mean that God? There's the same way that God controls every drop of rain that falls. He's also controlling my seeing every single drop of rain that falls in this exact spot. So we don't say that though. Yeah, Johnny's playing up at one point. It's not a coincidence. It's not just historically everyone values water. The fact is, water sustains life, right? If without water, we're what do you call it? We can't live. But then you can say about air also. About air we can't live. Like Eitz Yosef said, he says that the fact is that God, that every drop falls in where it's going. Like God's like telling, it's like when you see the rain, what do you see? Haphazard drops, right? But no, rather each drop is going to where it needs to go, so to speak. Like whole chaypetz. Which of course gets kind of strange because I see a lot of sewage. So what's that? So why is that such a great expression of Gvura? And then what's the context? Because both the Rasha and the Tzaddik benefit from it. Right. Whereas by Tchias HaMesim, it's only the Tzaddik. So Gevuros Geshamim is a greater expression of Koach Hashem. I have to say for sure. It can't just be that Geshem itself, right, is the great Geshem, the phenomenon. I think that's what you're getting at, right? So that whatever. So you got to say that that you're right, that Mayim, there's the idea of Geshem. So it can't just be that Geshem per se as a phenomenon is the greatest expression of Gevurah. For one simple reason why. Because when it comes to, do we have the ability in any way, shape, or form to objectively grade God's Gevurah? How could you grade God's Gevurah? By definition, intervention per se is, because when we say God's greatest Gevurah, from what framework? Not vis-a-vis God, because that would imply that what? Like people think that like, I told you this before, people think that like Nes A was greater than Nes B, right? Like Nes A, but it's not, because from God's perspective, God doesn't require more koach, so to speak, to direct every. Forget Nes. No, 5 minutes. Forget Nes. I want to avoid that. Let's say so far as God's control the universe, right? Why is there any different degree of control insofar as God's directing a raindrop in one location to making sure things orbit? In other words, it can't be. It's not that when the Gemara says that the Gevuros Geshamim is greater, it can't mean that. Objectively speaking, it's greater. That's absurd because God's Gevurah is God's Gevurah. There is no degree of Gevurah. There's a degree of Gevurah would imply that God tries harder for some things and not as hard for other things. Like it's a lot of work to go ahead and make sure each drop falls where it does, but not as much to bring back just the tzaddikim. That's absurd. You got to put in our framework. That's step one. And Tchias HaMesim as well, by the way.
Right, but I still would say Tchias HaMesim is greater.
Oh, but why? Now the question is, what is it about the experience of Geshem that a person would now say from his framework?
Oh, because you never experienced.
So I agree. But I can think you take what you're saying and apply it to Tzaddik and Rishon. In other words, it's not.
The first question first.
When it comes to the appreciation of Gevuros Hashem, right? So what you're saying is that. Say it again. I want to misquote you. He interrupted me.
Again, like what I was saying before.
So the things that which shows you what. In other words, whether or not you're a tzaddik or a rasha, right? So ultimately, in other words, we're saying from our perspective, God makes it rain, and it's irrelevant who you are as an individual insofar as your relationship to the rain itself, right? It's going to rain. So it doesn't matter if it's Hitler or if it's Rebbe Kiva, rain is rain. It's irrelevant based on who they are, right? Whereas when it comes to Tchias HaMesim, what do you have?
It damn well matters who you are.
Right. Well, you have control over it. You can figure out. You can work out a way to merit Tchias HaMesim. But there is no system of, so to speak, that you work out on a personal level.
Why rain over an alien part of nature?
Because you could say that. Because it's using rain. You're right. Oh, but the sun. The problem with the sun though is that the sun evokes. Same with the moon also. It evokes idolatry. You don't really have that by rain. Although you could argue there's such a thing as like rain dancing and rainmakers. Right. It's a good question. I mean. It's hard. I want to say that it does, but it's hard to. But you could say. But the question is, why is that ideal example? Because we do relate to it in a way where it sustains life.